Hey. Yeah, nice to be back. Hey, Luxley.
Hello, we are going to dive right into our panel. Welcome, Philip, and everyone here. Excited for being our moderator today.
Yeah, and it's just so much exciting. On this panel, we have about 3 students and then industrial experts. The session would be in a panel discussion, and yeah, I just love the title of this session, how students can get started with research and why it is important. And yeah, I have some of my main guys here. Eric, we have Siad, we have Vedant, and a lot more. So we're just going to invite them on stage so that they join us and then tell us a little bit more about the topic. Hey, Vedant.
Hey, Dawood. Hey, Loxley. Thanks for having me here. So let me quickly begin the panel by introducing myself. So I'll be moderating the entire panel. I'm actually a Microsoft Gold Student Ambassador from India and also a research intern at University of California, Los Angeles. And now over to the panelists. I would request the panelists to quickly introduce themselves. Philip, would you like to go first?
Yes, my name's Phil Carlisle, and I'm the program leader for Games Computing, which is an undergraduate degree at the University of Lincoln in the UK.
Awesome. Vedant, would you like to go next?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Vedant Behel. I'm a Microsoft Gold Student Ambassador from India. With my research interest in applied machine learning in education and medical imaging, I'm also a research assistant at Baker's EDM Lab at University of Pennsylvania.
Wow, that's awesome. Ananya, would you like to go next?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Ananya Vedala. I'm from Hyderabad, India, and I'm a Gold Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador as well. And I'm also an incoming intern at JP Morgan. I'm a beginner in the field of research, and I'm actually looking forward to learning from the panel as well today.
That is great. Over to you, Eric.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Eric, and I study computer science here in the University of California, San Diego. I currently do research in deep reinforcement learning with a focus on safety and autonomous driving under Professor Sikun Gao. I'm really excited to be invited here on the panel and looking forward to talking to you guys.
Impressive. We have a wonderful set of people in this panel, guys. Okay, so before we begin, let me give you a brief introduction to research. So what is research? It's nothing but logical and systematic search for something new and useful, right? We're looking for useful information on a particular topic that we can use in our real world, in the real world in the future, right? So there are basically two main classes to research: fundamental or basic research and applied research in both scientific and non-scientific fields. Okay, you might be thinking, what am I speaking? When you hear about research, you think about secret government labs, you think about, big tech companies having hidden labs talking about research. But the truth is that research, is an important aspect when it comes to advancements in AI, which is quite relevant to today's conference, right? And also in other fields in both industry and academia. So to begin with, I'd like to, talk about interdisciplinary research. Why is it important to have or build project with diversified teams? Why is it important to bring in different departments and work collaboratively together? How can a student, break into research in a friendly manner? So, Philip, would you like to go first? Because you have a lot of experience with game development and research with gaming at University of Lincoln.
Yeah, exactly. So I got into research. Basically, I came from the games industry, and I just left the game industry working on some of the Worms games. And I was really interested in this idea of games characters and digital actors. And so for the last sort of 16 years or so, I've been pursuing that kind of goal, right? And one of the things that you learn is that a lot of the techniques that we apply in any kind of research area often come from different fields. So for instance, some of the understanding you get might come from the field of psychology. My current research is working a lot on computer vision and machine learning, which is, maybe you think is different from games, but actually a lot of the creative technologies that I see and a lot of the opportunities for research come from thinking about how you can benefit a particular use case with the techniques from lots and lots of different fields. So actually what I really like about research is that it is that sort of multidisciplinary thing. So my group is called the Interaction Lab, and we do research primarily to do with computers and interaction, but we do it for lots of different purposes, right? So things like healthcare, things like virtual augmented reality, things like games, and all of these things are informed by other fields like robotics and psychology and lots of different types of aspects, right? So art, a media theory and film and those kind of things. So actually, what I would say is that for students who are interested in doing research, try and think about things that are interesting to you. Try and think about the fields that you are passionate about and consider what actually might benefit those fields. What might you learn and then subsequently study as a researcher that will actually make those fields move forward. So my interest is making really believable digital actors. How would I get there? I mean, it might be that it'll take, multiple careers and multiple lifetimes to get there, but that's the ultimate goal. So what we're trying to do in research is move towards something, usually.
Thank you, Philip. That's really exciting. Thanks for the insights about interdisciplinary research. So following or referring to the game development side of research, what are some of the approaches to get started? Like if someone is looking, if someone is an avid gamer and is trying to get into research, for example, he plays lots and lots of games. How can he move towards the field of research? Eric, would you like to go ahead with that?
Sure. So I think the first thing to think about is what is it about gaming that really gets you excited, right? What is something about gaming that you would like to pursue? This could be computer graphics. You can start thinking about maybe computer vision. For me, I work on deep reinforcement learning, which is actually a very common technique to use to build AIs in video games. So if you've ever played Super Smash Bros. Or Super Smash just in general, you're playing against AIs, and those AIs are trained using some sort of AI algorithm, and very often it's used reinforcement learning in order to do so. So if you're interested in building these sort of AIs, you can start thinking about what is reinforcement learning and how can I start getting involved with that. Specifically, if you guys ever heard of something called Project Malmo, it is a Microsoft product, or rather platform. And the idea is that you can actually experiment on artificial intelligence algorithms using one and only Minecraft. So this is something that researchers can actually use in order to start testing their theories and build some data, get some data, build some experiments on. So this is something definitely that I recommend you guys check out if you're interested in AI, especially in video games.
Thanks, Eric. Deep reinforcement learning is indeed a great topic to be looking into right now for game development research or robotics for that matter. So now I'd like to touch upon how students can actually prepare themselves for research. What are different time commitments or dedications that go into place? I think Vedant, would you like to go ahead because you're working at University of Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, sure. I cannot deny the fact that research does require a lot of time commitment and dedication and patience. But I think as a student, we are already halfway there. When I talk about different programs by different universities, we have mini projects, minor projects, major projects. And with all of those projects, we try to have some aspect of innovation. And I guess that's the half of the research. And the other half is to document it and maybe present it to the global community. And that's to be taken. So I think it's not good to see research as a separate bubble, because if you see it as a separate bubble, you are just increasing distance. And for someone who to get started, just start with any basic project. And the research community is very encouraging. So I guess any basic project will be welcome at some or the other venue.
Thanks, Vedant, for the awesome points. So another question I keep getting asked about is, what is the difference between research that's happening in academia or in educational institutions versus industry? Let me quickly touch upon that point, and then we can move ahead to the next questions. So what happens in academia is highly research and discovery focused. much of the research is happening for educational purposes, the purpose of learning, getting new publications, right? But in industry, you get a sense of, a feeling of immediate impact, or you want immediate applications that can be used in the real world, right? So they have the right resources, industries have the right resources to make an end-to-end project, combine research with engineering and make it happen. But in today's scenario, what's actually happening is industry and academia are working hand to hand. They're working together. They're working in a collaborative research environment, and it's also open source. So you can also contribute to that as well. And a good example of this is Microsoft Research. It's a great place to work if you're looking into a career switch from engineering to research, or if you're a student looking towards research projects that involve a lot of engineering in the you can say main aspects. So small examples are like Project 15, which was spoken about earlier, which is about ecosystem sustainability, right? Project Malmo is a great example for reinforcement learning and robotics, which Eric spoke about. Then Microsoft also has tie-ups with great universities throughout the world. So it's a good place to get started and look at stuff. So just Google up Microsoft Research and you'll get to know about what are the projects being done there. You can also contribute in an open source environment. Okay, so moving on, let me, talk about how is the field of research different from that of engineering. So let me ask this question to Ananya, who is an incoming intern at JP Morgan Chase, and she's also got into research recently. So I think she'll be able to resonate. The audience will be able to resonate well with her situation.
Yeah, just the couple of minutes that I've been on the panel, I've already got so much out of it. And I'm sure a lot of them would relate, as you just said. Coming to my experience so far that I've faced, whatever the time that I've spent in research, is that I found it a little intimidating, I would say, because there's so much research that has already been done and there's so many resources out there. This can be both good and bad because like when you start working on a paper and you think that there's probably something you can build on it when you read a paper and you want to build on it, after a couple of papers, you realize it's already been done, and then you're back to square one. So I say this only from my perspective that in the initial stages, research can be a little less rewarding maybe, and pretty repetitive in comparison to the field of engineering, where you see the output, like you see the progress that you're making, and you get that reward when you when you finish an application or solve the problem. But that's not the case with research from what I've seen so far. So you'll have to read tons of papers before you even figure out what it is that you actually want to work on and what you're interested in. It's been a couple of weeks since I've started with research, and it is actually slowly starting to materialize. But as we're making progress, one thing that I can say is that the satisfaction that I've been getting after every milestone that we reach is much more than what I get when I probably finish an application or I solve a problem for that matter. Like from every paper, there's so much that I get out of it. And especially when you're interested in some topic, there's so many insights that come out of it. So I feel like there's no limit to how much you can dig deeper into a specific topic if you're interested. And also, this is something that I've seen out of experience, and that is that without guidance, working on a paper becomes a little Herculean. It's always best to take the right tips and guidance from people that are interested and are experienced in the same field. And having said this, the entire process so far has been challenging, but it has also been a lot of fun. And I'm actually really looking forward to publishing my paper soon. Hopefully.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks. Thanks, Ananya, for your opinions and your viewpoints. Okay, Eric, would you like to quickly touch upon engineering versus research? Because you've also seen both the sides of research plus engineering. You're also an incoming intern at SD intern at Amazon, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yes, sir, I am. Yeah. So thank you, Ananya, for the great insights. I'm just going to talk a little bit generically about the difference between doing research and doing engineering. So research, or researchers, scientists, they all sort of do research. Their main goal is to try and understand the world as we know it and try and push the limits of our knowledge as humans. And that includes discovering new things. Whereas in engineering, we use what we have already existing in order to create new things. So one way you can think of this is engineers use our existing knowledge in order to apply to real world applications, whereas scientists or rather scientists, are the ones to discover new knowledge. Without scientists, interestingly enough, engineers will not be able to apply anything to the world because there's not new knowledge coming in. And without engineers, the work of scientists will not be fully realized because we wouldn't have anyone to apply that knowledge to our current existing issues. So it's really this codependence of each other between researchers and engineers that makes society functional.
Thanks, Eric. The collaboration between engineers and researchers is very important in today's era, I would say, especially with the products which are coming out are having the latest research which has happened a few months back. So it's impressive to see the way research is catching up with engineering in today's era. All right, moving on. So have you guys made up your mind for research yet? I mean, you had interesting insights from people who have just started with research and people who are doing research. Okay, if you're interested, then what are the next steps? I mean, you could always approach professors at your own university. You could approach professors externally. You could, read up research papers on the topics that interest you the most. Then you can look into how to actually read research papers, look for collaboration between different people who are working in similar areas that you're interested in, right? And the most important thing is you need to stay proactive because research can be daunting in the beginning phases, right? You need to understand that you need lots and lots of dedication. You need perseverance to move towards a topic that actually interests you in the research field. Vedant, would you like to touch up on this topic a little bit?
Yeah, I would like to add something here that usually the best recommendation that anyone gets when someone wants to start with research is approaching a professor or a lab. But I think there is something which is more important before that, which is understanding what really you want, because I've seen a lot of people go into something. It's good that you're exploring, but you end up wasting a lot of time. And that can be saved if you do a me search before doing a research and exploring what you want to do, maybe reading some papers about that topic. And then you get to, you can decide better whom to approach, which lab to approach. Even with approaching professors, I recommend people not to just generalize your email, maybe visit the lab's website, just see what projects are running at that moment and what are the requirements. Mention that in your email that you can contribute to the projects that are ongoing in the lab or ongoing with the professors. So I guess that's something more important and to be focused on, which is generally overlooked.
Thank you, Vedant, for your insights. Okay, another question that is pretty common among students is, how do I approach a professor? Okay, I've chosen a topic for research. Okay, I know that, for example, I want to work on reinforcement learning. I know that I want to move into game development, for example. Then how do I approach a specific professor from a specific university? And how to collaborate with people when coming to, international research projects? Philip, I think you would be a great person to answer that.
Yeah, so my own approach is that I try and identify somebody who's really working on interesting work in a particular field. And then what I try and do is do a little bit of basically a bit of detective work to find out things like how to contact them. So usually universities have staff email lists and staff contact pages. Usually the actual sort of publications from a research group will have the email addresses of the contributors. Professors and researchers generally love talking about their work. They're really, really enthusiastic about it for the most part. So when you contact them, if they're not really busy, then they'll always be happy to talk to you. And I'm the same. Like I love talking about the things that I'm interested in. I'm very passionate about it. And so we will take time to talk to people outside of our own organizations. Having said that, having a good contact with in your own organization always helps as well. So have a little bit of a support group there. What I tend to do is I follow people on Twitter. So people who really work in the leading edge of the field that I'm interested in, I'll see if they've got a Twitter account or a YouTube account, and I'll start following their content there. Often these days with, the pandemic ongoing, there's actually huge amounts of information that these professors are actually doing. So yesterday I was a seminar with a bunch of really high quality presentations from top professors in the field, and it was all made public. So definitely do that kind of thing where you're looking for their output.
Thank you, Philip. Those were really great points. A few more things that I'd like to add is you can always check out Google Scholar profiles of most of the researchers. They maintain an awesome Google Scholar profile, which talks about different collaborators that they have worked on in the past, or what are the projects that they're actually interested in, the domains that resonate well with you. Another thing is try and attend as many conferences as you can. Due to the pandemic, most of the conferences are online. Most of it are happening on YouTube or different platforms like Run the World, or platforms that are open and free for you. You just have to go ahead and register. It takes hardly a minute to register for conferences. So if you're interested in reinforcement learning, look out for reinforcement learning conferences, which are happening internationally. It's all virtual. Why not attend it, right? Another thing is, how do you read research papers? Because getting into the field of research, you need to understand what's actually happening in the field before you go ahead and put out your theory or put out your ideas into a paper. So Vedant, would you like to touch upon a few points that students have to keep in mind while reading a research paper?
Yes, the go-to thing is Google Scholar, definitely, because it is the search engine for all the research papers. And it is very important to focus on the keywords that you are focusing on, the projects, the keywords related to your projects. And abstract is the thing. Usually I've seen people, when they start with, they read full paper and then they realize that they didn't get a lot of things out of the paper. So the best way is to look at the abstract and decide whether to go ahead with that paper or not, because definitely a lot of papers are required while you are focusing on a research project, but still you need to filter out which are important and which are not. So I guess that's the strategy for the reading papers. And mostly, even with reading papers, there should be a literature review paragraph that should be in your main paper when you are writing or drafting your paper. So focus on mentioning some of those important papers that you went through, and try highlighting the key features of that paper. I guess that's more about the review and paper reading.
Thanks for the insights, Vedant. Okay, I think we still have a little bit of time. We can take one or two questions from the audience. So audience, fire away. If you have any questions related to research, you want to get started with research, or you are right now struggling with the initial phases, anything you'd like to ask us about, please make sure to put it in the chat and we'll get back to you.
While we have some questions, I would just like to add something else. When I talk about literature review, it can be another strategy to get started, which is a review paper, which is a good strategy to get started when you are into a research. Maybe when you are exploring different fields or different domain. For example, when I was exploring the field, I started with a review paper. The initial paper did take, even though it was review, it took 5 months or 6 months for me to write. But that was good because I got to know about the field, and now I can definitely write a lot of papers and focus on a lot of more research in that field. So review paper is a good strategy, and research can be overwhelming at times. But personally, me, I started with my research, I guess 2 years ago with my first paper, and today, just morning, I got acceptance for my 10th paper. So I guess that's something research.
That's awesome. Wow, 10th paper. That's great. I think the far I have reached is 4 or 5 papers. That's it. Not more than that. That's really great, Vedant. Okay, so talking about the importance of literature reviews. I mean, if you can have a review paper done. For example, I faced some issues with the field of natural language processing, NLP, and how can you break into that specific field. The field was really vast for me. I mean, there's research coming out every other day from different university or different company. There's research papers coming out from Microsoft, from Google, from different startups. So how did I break into the field? So what I did was I tried to look for review papers which are already out there on a specific date. For example, if I was looking in 2020, then I tried looking for review papers which are of the latest publication, right? So they actually had the listing of all the research that has happened in the field of NLP. And then what I tried to do was I tried to look for papers that have been published after that review. So trying to put that all together in an environment, in a map on a sheet of paper helped me understand, okay, this is where research has been done, and this is where the research is going. And And it really helped me in choosing which specific domain that I want to look into for NLP, for example. I'm just giving an example in my case, right? So that's a good way of getting started, as Vedant also mentioned, right? Review papers are very important. So I think if you do not have any questions at this point, let's talk more about how to approach a professor, because I know Philip and Vedant have touched upon it, but it's a very frequently asked question. How can I approach a professor, and what should I mention in the email? What are the things that I should add in the email? Philip, would you like to cover a little bit?
So one thing I would mention, Syed, is ideally what you should have is something that you've worked on personally that's in that related field, so you can kind of show that you've got an interest that's beyond just sort of a nominal theory, right? You actually want to show, I've tried this, can you help me understand something more? So what you're trying to do is show that you've got some progress behind you already, and that actually you can make more progress. So I've had students approach me and they've shown me projects that they've worked on that I thought, oh yeah, I could use that kind of knowledge in a slightly different domain. So one of the things that you often see with research is you apply one domain, one set of knowledge in an entirely different domain. So for instance, games might use research from robotics, and that cross application is really, really useful. So if students come from robotics backgrounds and think I want to get into games research, that's really actually a very, very useful thing to do. So consider doing those kind of things. Games researchers getting into, say, health scenarios. We do a lot of assistive technologies with, reduced mobility and those kind of things in virtual and augmented reality. So it's kind of like you apply it in different spheres.
You're on mute, sir.
Sorry.
I guess one more thing which can be added is there are undergrad programs, research programs that students can approach, like MyTax Canada or DAD Germany or Max Planck Institute of Switzerland or some sort of program Baltech. So I guess that's also one of the go-to strategy.
Thanks, Vedant. Thank you, everyone. This was really an awesome panel discussion.
Amazing.
Even I got to learn a lot. Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Amazing. Yeah, even I got to learn a lot too. All of us. I mean, research is quite an exciting, part to move in. We all, did one way or the other in school. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.